The marketplace was alive with noise, full of traders shouting about their goods, machines hissing, and strange creatures moving in every direction. Yet, in the middle of this noisy place, one voice was breaking apart, a weak cry that did not fit in with the chaos. It was the voice of a mother. She was not strong. Her clothes were torn, her skin pale, her eyes dark from hunger and sleepless nights. She held a small boy in her arms, his ribs showing, his lips dry and cracked. He was too weak to cry, too tired to even raise his head. The mother stumbled forward into the crowd. Her knees hit the cold stone. Her hands trembled as she raised them. Her voice came out rough and broken. "Take my life, but feed my son. Please, I beg you, just give him food." The crowd stopped for a moment. Some aliens laughed cruelly. Some shook their heads. Others turned away as if she was nothing but dirt on the street. A merchant hissed, "Pathetic creature. Not even worth a coin." Another whispered to his friend, "She offers her life, but even that has no value." The boy coughed weakly, his tiny body shaking. The mother pulled him closer, tears running down her cheeks. She did not care about herself anymore. All she wanted was one bite of food for her child. Her voice grew louder, desperate. "Take me, sell me, do whatever you want, just give my boy something to eat." But the crowd only watched. Some even smiled as if enjoying the pain. In this city, mercy was rare, kindness was weakness, and weakness was laughed at. The mother's body began to fall, her strength leaving her. She thought this was the end. The crowd was a wall of cold faces, no hands reaching out, no hearts willing to help. The boy whispered faintly, "Mama, hungry." And then, a shadow fell across them. A figure stepped forward, not like the others, not with mocking eyes or cruel laughter. It was a man, tall, human. His clothes were simple, travel-worn, his eyes steady, not cold, but burning with something different. The marketplace grew silent for a moment. All eyes turned to the human. A voice in the crowd muttered, "A human? Here? What is he doing?" The man did not answer them. He looked only at the mother and her son. In his hands was a small pack, worn and patched. He opened it slowly, carefully, as if he did not want to frighten them. From inside, he pulled out bread, soft and fresh, and a container of warm soup. The smell drifted into the air and the boy's eyes lit up weakly. The mother blinked, confused. She thought it was a trick. No one gave food without a price, not in this cruel city. "Why?" she whispered, her voice shaking. "Why would you?" The man knelt down on one knee beside them. He placed the bread in the boy's hands. His voice was calm, simple. "Because no child should starve." The boy grabbed the bread with trembling fingers. He ate in small bites, his tears mixing with crumbs. The mother's heart pounded. Was this real? Was this stranger truly feeding her son without asking for her life in return? The crowd began to murmur. Some were shocked, some were angry. "He is mad." One merchant spat. "Humans are strange. They think kindness is strength." Another sneered. "He will regret this. Helping the weak is like painting a target on your back." But the man did not listen. He opened the soup and held it out. The mother hesitated, still afraid, but the warmth rising from the bowl called to her empty stomach. She reached out slowly, her hands shaking as she held it. She took one sip, and the tears ran down her face even harder. For the first time in many days, both mother and child felt food in their mouths. Life returned to their bodies little by little. The boy leaned against his mother, whispering softly, "Mama, it's good." The man looked at them quietly. His face did not change much, but in his eyes there was a shadow, a weight of something he carried inside. He stood tall again, as if ready to walk away. But then he saw the fear still in the mother's eyes, the way she held her son tightly as if the world would tear him away the moment she let go. Something stirred inside him, something that told him he could not just leave. The crowd watched silently, wondering what would happen next. Would the man stay? Would he take them away? Or would he simply vanish back into the endless streets of the city? The mother looked up at him, her lips trembling. She wanted to say thank you, but the words were trapped in her throat. She only managed a whisper, almost broken. Why help us? The man's answer was simple, but it carried weight. Because I can. And with that, the silence of the crowd grew heavy. Something had changed, something no one expected. One act of kindness in a place built on cruelty, though boy, half asleep in his mother's arms now, still held a piece of bread tightly as if afraid it would disappear. The mother clung to him, her heart racing with fear, hope, and confusion all at once. The human turned his head, scanning the faces. Around him, the crowd was restless, their whispers sharp. Some looked ready to cause trouble, some looked uneasy. And yet the man stood tall, calm, as if daring anyone to step forward. The desperate plea of one mother had been heard, but it was only the beginning. The marketplace slowly came back to life, but not in the same way as before. Whispers filled the air, eyes followed the human. Some laughed, some frowned, some shook their heads. No one could understand why a man, and not just any man but a human outsider, would waste his food on a dying alien mother and her child. But the man did not care about their stares. He cared only about the boy who was still chewing the bread, and the mother who clutched the bowl of soup as if it was treasure. He knelt closer, speaking softly. Eat slowly. Don't rush. The boy nodded weakly, crumbs falling down his chin. He had not eaten in so long that his body wanted to swallow everything at once. The mother gently placed her hand on the boy's head, guiding him to take small bites. She too sipped the soup, each drop burning her empty stomach with warmth. Her eyes stayed on the man, full of confusion and fear. "Why are you still here?" she whispered. "You gave food, you could leave." The man did not answer at once. He sat down on the cold ground near them, his pack beside him. He looked tired, but there was no sign of regret in his face. Finally, he said in a calm voice, "Because if I walk away, others may try to take what little you have left. I will stay until you are safe." The mother's lips trembled. No one in this city stayed for protection unless they wanted payment. No one risked themselves for strangers, especially not for an outcast woman like her. The crowd's whispers grew louder. A group of merchants pointed toward them. One said, "This will cause trouble." Another grumbled, "The gangs won't like this." Their voices carried warning, but the human ignored them. The boy finished the bread and leaned against his mother's arm, his small eyes opened wide, looking at the man. Are you an angel?" His voice was soft, broken by hunger. The crowd laughed at the words, mocking, but the man did not smile. He only placed another small piece of bread into the boy's hand and said, "No, just a traveler who couldn't look away." The mother's heart ached at the words. She studied him carefully. His hands were rough, scarred. His eyes carried weight, like a soldier who had seen too much. He was not a rich man, not a powerful leader. He was just one person. Yet, in that moment, he seemed stronger than the entire marketplace. The boy began to eat again, his strength returning slowly. The mother watched in silence, her tears falling into the soup she still held. She thought about the last weeks, the hunger, the endless begging, the cruel laughter. She had almost lost hope completely. And then this stranger appeared. Why? Why now? Her thoughts broke when a voice from the back shouted, "Human, you don't belong here. Leave the dirt where it is, they're worthless." The crowd stirred with laughter and agreement. Some nodded, some spat on the ground. The man stood slowly. His tall frame made him stand out. His calm eyes scanned the crowd. For a moment, the marketplace grew quiet again. His voice was steady. When he answered, "Worthless? Tell me, what is more worthless, mocking the weak or lifting them up?" His words cut like a blade. The laughter stopped. No one expected a human to speak like that. The mother's chest tightened. She had never heard anyone defend her like this, not once. The crowd began to break apart. Not out of shame, but out of discomfort. People here did not like questions that struck their hearts. They liked silence, cruelty, and fear. And the human's voice was too steady, too sure. When the noise faded, the man turned back to the mother. He lowered himself once, more meeting her eyes. "Do you have somewhere to go?" She shook her head quickly. Her voice cracked. "No home, no family. Only my son. We have been running for weeks, hiding. He is all I have." She clutched the boy closer as if someone would tear him away. The man sighed softly. He looked at the boy, then at the mother. Something deep in his chest stirred. He had promised himself once never to take on another burden, never to let anyone close. But now, looking at them, he knew that promise was breaking. "Then you will come with me," he said simply. The mother's eyes widened, fear rushing into her chest. "No, no, we cannot pay you. We have nothing. You will regret this." The man shook his head. His tone was steady, final. "I did not ask for payment. I said no child should starve. That includes yours." The boy smiled weakly, his small voice lifting. "Mama, he's nice. Can we go with him?" His innocent words pierced the mother's heart. She was torn between fear of betrayal and the desperate need for safety. Before she could answer, the man stood and extended his hand. "It's your choice," he said. "But if you stay here, tomorrow will be worse than today." The mother looked up at him, her lips trembling. She wanted to say thank you, but the words were trapped in her throat. She only managed to whisper, almost broken, Why help us?" The man's answer was simple, but it carried weight. "Because I can." And with that, the silence of the crowd grew heavy. Something had changed. Something no one expected. One act of kindness in a place built on cruelty. The boy, half asleep in his mother's arms now, still held a piece of bread tightly as if afraid it would disappear. The mother clung to him, her heart racing with fear, hope, and confusion all at once. The human turned his head, scanning the faces around him. The crowd was restless, their whispers sharp. Some looked ready to cause trouble, some looked uneasy, and yet the man stood tall, calm, as if daring anyone to step forward. The desperate plea of one mother had been heard, but it was only the beginning. The marketplace slowly came back to life, but not in the same way as before. Whispers filled the air. Eyes followed the human. Some laughed, some frowned, some shook their heads. No one could understand why a man, and not just any man but a human outsider, would waste his food on a dying alien mother and her child. But the man did not care about their stares. He cared only about the boy who was still chewing the bread, and the mother who clutched the bowl of soup as if it was treasure. He knelt closer, speaking softly. "Eat slowly. Don't rush." The boy nodded weakly, crumbs falling down his chin. He had not eaten in so long that his body wanted to swallow everything at once. The mother gently placed her hand on the boy's head, guiding him to take small bites. She too sipped the soup, each drop burning her empty stomach with warmth. Her eyes stayed on the man, full of confusion and fear. "Why are you still here?" she whispered. "You gave food. You could leave." The man did not answer at once. He sat down on the cold ground near them, his pack beside him. He looked tired, but there was no sign of regret in his face. Finally, he said in a calm voice, "Because if I walk away, others may try to take what little you have left. I will stay until you are safe." The mother's lips trembled. No one in this city stayed for protection unless they wanted payment. No one risked themselves for strangers, especially not for an outcast woman like her. The crowd's whispers grew louder. A group of merchants pointed toward them. One said, "This will cause trouble." Another grumbled, "The gangs won't like this." Their voices carried warning, but the human ignored them. The boy finished the bread and leaned against his mother's arm, his small eyes opened wide, looking at the man. Are you an angel?" His voice was soft, broken by hunger. The crowd laughed at the words, mocking, but the man did not smile. He only placed another small piece of bread into the boy's hand and said, "No, just a traveler who couldn't look away." The mother's heart ached at the words. She studied him carefully. His hands were rough, scarred, his eyes carried weight, like a soldier who had seen too much. He was not a rich man, not a powerful leader. He was just one person. Yet in that moment, he seemed stronger than the entire marketplace. The boy began to eat again, his strength returning slowly. The mother watched in silence, her tears falling into the soup she still held. She thought about the last weeks, the hunger, the endless begging, the cruel laughter. She had almost lost hope completely. And then this stranger appeared. Why? Why now? Her thoughts broke when a voice from the back shouted, "Human, you don't belong here. Leave the dirt where it is. They're worthless." The crowd stirred with laughter and agreement. Some nodded, some spat on the ground. The man stood slowly. His tall frame made him stand out. His calm eyes scanned the crowd. For a moment, the marketplace grew quiet again. His voice was steady. When he answered, "Worthless? Tell me, what is more worthless, mocking the weak or lifting them up?" His words cut like a blade. The laughter stopped. No one expected a human to speak like that. The mother's chest tightened. She had never heard anyone defend her like this, not once. The crowd began to break apart, not out of shame, but out of discomfort. People here did not like questions that struck their hearts. They liked silence, cruelty, and fear. And the human's voice was too steady, too sure. When the noise faded, the man turned back to the mother. He lowered himself once more, meeting her eyes. "Do you have somewhere to go?" She shook her head quickly, her voice cracked. "No home, no family, only my son. We have been running for weeks, hiding. He is all I have." She clutched the boy closer as if someone would tear him away. The man sighed softly. He looked at the boy, then at the mother. Something deep in his chest stirred. He had promised himself once never to take on another burden, never to let anyone close. But now, looking at them, he knew that promise was breaking. "Then you will come with me," he said simply. The mother's eyes widened, fear rushing into her chest. "No, no, we cannot pay you. We have nothing. You will regret this." The man shook his head. His tone was steady, final. "I did not ask for payment. I said no child should starve. That includes yours." The boy smiled weakly, his small voice lifting. "Mama, he's nice. Can we go with him?" His innocent words pierced the mother's heart. She was torn between fear of betrayal and the desperate need for safety. Before she could answer, the man stood and extended his hand. "It's your choice," he said. "But if you stay here, tomorrow will be worse than today." The mother looked at his hand, then at the boy who leaned against her. She closed her eyes, tears spilling down. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Then we will follow you." The man nodded once, as if he expected it. He turned, leading them away from the cruel eyes of the marketplace. The boy clutched the last piece of bread tightly, smiling faintly as if a new world was opening. Behind them, the crowd whispered again, this time not with laughter but with unease. A human had interfered, fed the weak, and taken them away. In this city, such acts did not go unnoticed. Shadows were already moving, planning. But for that one moment, as the mother walked beside the human and the boy rested safely in her arms, hope returned. A small hope, fragile but alive. The meal of mercy had changed everything. The narrow streets of the alien city were dark when the human led the mother and her son away from the crowded marketplace. Neon lights flickered on broken walls, and shadows stretched long across the ground. The boy clutched the human's sleeve, his tiny steps struggling to keep up. The mother stayed close, her eyes moving nervously. Every corner felt dangerous. Every sound carried a threat. Finally, the man stopped in front of an old workshop hidden between tall buildings. Its door was rusted, its windows cracked, but inside there was shelter. He pushed the door open and guided them in. The air smelled of oil and metal, but it was warm. There were tools scattered, broken machines resting on the tables, and in one corner, a simple bed rolled out on the floor. "This is where I stay," the man said quietly. "It's not much, but it is safe." The boy's eyes lit up. He had never seen so many strange tools before. He touched a small device on the table, blinking in wonder. The mother, however, was not at ease. She kept holding her son close, her voice trembling. "Why are you doing this? We are nothing to you. You risk yourself for us, but why?" The man looked at her for a moment. His face was calm, but his eyes carried a heavy weight. He did not answer right away. Instead, He pulled out a small container and filled it with water, handing it to the boy. Only when the boy drank, smiling faintly. Did the man finally speak? I know what it feels like to be left with nothing, he said. His voice was low, almost like a memory. I know the hunger, the cold, the way people turn their faces as if you do not exist. The mother stared at him, surprised. You? A human? He nodded, his eyes on the floor. Once I was just like you, begging for someone to care. No one did, so I learned to survive on my own. But sometimes, the past never lets go. The mother's hands shook. She thought of the days she had begged in the street, the times she had been kicked away, the nights when she thought her son would die in her arms. In his words, she heard her own pain reflected back. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "My husband." He was taken by slavers. He tried to protect us, but they dragged him away. I ran with my son, but our people closed their doors. They said we were cursed, unworthy. We wandered from city to city, always begging, always hiding. He is all I have left. She pulled her son closer, kissing his forehead. If I lose him, I lose everything. The human listened in silence. His jaw tightened. He understood more than she knew. For a moment, he saw another face in his mind. Someone he once failed to protect. A face lost long ago. He pushed the memory back into the shadows of his mind. You have carried more than most could bear, he said finally. But you are still standing. That means you are stronger than you think. The mother looked at him with wide eyes. No one had ever told her she was strong. All her life she had been told she was weak, worthless, a burden. Her throat closed with emotion. She could not reply. The boy tugged at the human's hand, his voice small but curious. Mister, do you have children? The man froze. His hand trembled for the first time. He looked at the boy, then turned his face away. His voice came out rough. Not anymore. The mother's heart ached at his words. She did not ask further, but she saw it. The shadow in his eyes, the wound deeper than any blade could cut. This man was not only saving them, he was trying to save something inside himself. The silence in the room grew heavy, broken only by the sound of the boy finishing his water. The mother laid him down on the bedroll, covering him with a thin blanket. The child's breathing softened, finally falling into sleep. The human leaned against the wall, his arms crossed, watching quietly. The mother sat on the floor near her son, her hands folded tightly. Finally she whispered, You carry pain like me, don't you? The man did not deny it. He only gave a small nod. His voice was steady, but it carried sorrow. Pain shapes us, but it should not rule us. That is why I will not walk away from you. Not now. The mother lowered her head, her tears falling silently. In the shadows of that broken workshop, two lives that had been shattered began to connect through the weight of their past. But outside, the city was not silent. Word of the human's act had already spread. In a tavern nearby, men whispered about the fool who gave food to a beggar. In the dark alleys, gang members sharpened their knives, muttering about teaching him a lesson. The mother did not know of the danger moving closer. The boy did not know either. He slept peacefully for the first time in weeks. But the man knew. His eyes remained sharp, always watching the door. He had seen the way the crowd looked at him. He had felt the weight of their stares. He knew shadows would come. Still, as he stood there protecting the sleeping boy and his broken mother, he felt something he had not felt in years. Purpose. The past haunted him, yes. But now the past gave him strength. The night in the alien city was never quiet. Outside the workshop, machines rumbled, voices shouted, and the distant sound of fighting echoed through the streets. But inside, it was calm for the first time. The boy slept peacefully, his small chest rising and falling in steady rhythm. The mother sat beside him, her hand resting gently on his back. The human, however, did not rest. He stood near the window, his sharp eyes watching the shadows outside. He had lived too long to believe that kindness came without danger. In a city like this, mercy was a crime, and crimes always drew enemies. Hours passed. Then, as the moonlight touched the cracked glass of the window, he saw them. Dark shapes moving through the alley, slow, silent, dangerous. His jaw tightened. He had expected this. The door creaked. The mother looked up in fear. "What is it?" she whispered. "Stay with your son." The man said calmly, "Do not move until I tell you." The shadows outside grew clearer. 5 figures, tall and armed. Their faces were marked with tattoos, their eyes glowing faintly in the dark. These were not ordinary thieves. These were gang enforcers, the kind who ruled the poor with fear. One of them kicked the door open. The sound cracked through the workshop like thunder. The boy stirred in his sleep. The mother pulled him close, her body shaking. The leader stepped inside, his grin sharp and cruel. "So you're the human who thinks he can play hero, feeding beggars in our streets? That is our territory, no. One gives food without our share." His voice was like poison, slow and mocking. The man did not flinch. He stepped forward, his face calm, his hands empty. "They were starving. I gave them food. That is all." The gang laughed. The leader tilted his head. "That is all? No, human. That is not all. By feeding them, you insult us. You show weakness in front of the crowd, and weakness spreads. We cannot allow that." He pulled a long blade from his belt, the metal shining under the dim light. The mother gasped, holding her son tighter. Her heart raced. She whispered, "Please don't hurt him. Take me instead." The gang leader laughed loudly. "Hear that? She offers herself, just like in the marketplace, but no, woman. Tonight we want the human. We will carve a lesson into his skin so no one dares to do this again." The human's eyes stayed locked on the leader, calm but sharp. He spoke quietly, almost too quiet for the gang to hear. "You should have walked away," the leader sneered. "Or what? You'll fight us? A single man against 5? He raised his blade. "You are no warrior, you are just another fool." In one swift move, the human reached for a broken piece of metal lying on the table. His hand moved faster than their eyes could follow. The sharp edge struck the leader's wrist. The blade clattered to the floor. The gang roared. 2 rushed at him, swinging clubs. The human ducked low, his body moving with practiced skill. He drove his elbow into one man's stomach, then grabbed the other by the arm and slammed him against the wall. The workshop shook with the impact. The mother could only watch in shock. This man, who had seemed so quiet and calm, now fought like a predator. Every strike precise, every movement sharp. She could not understand how a simple traveler could move with such deadly strength. The leader growled, clutching his bleeding wrist. "Kill him!" The last 2 gang members charged. One grabbed the human's shoulder, but the man twisted, driving his knee upward. The sound of breaking bone echoed. The other swung wildly with a chain. The man caught it mid-swing, yanked it hard, and pulled, his attacker off balance. One strike to the jaw, and the thug fell silent. The fight was over in seconds. The gang groaned on the floor, beaten, broken, their pride shattered. The leader crawled toward his blade, but the human stepped on it, pinning it down. His voice was low, cold. "If you come back, you will not walk away." The leader's eyes burned with hate, but he nodded quickly. He and his men staggered out into the night, limping, dragging each other. Their laughter was gone, replaced with fear and anger. The mother stared at the human, her lips trembling. You fought them like a soldier." The man turned back to her, his expression unreadable. "I told you I've been here before. I know how to survive." She looked down at her son, who had slept through most of the fight, unaware of how close death had come. Her hands shook as she whispered, "They will come back, won't they?" The human nodded slowly. "Yes, they will not forget this, and they will not forgive it." The mother's heart filled with dread, but also something else. Hope. She had seen his strength, his courage. His words earlier echoed in her mind. No child should starve. For the first time, she believed he might truly protect them. The man sat back down near the door, his eyes sharp, watching the night. He did not relax. He knew more enemies would come. This was only the beginning. And yet, in the silence that followed, as the boy breathed softly and the mother watched the human in awe, there was something stronger than fear, something that whispered of a bond forming, a bond built not from blood but from survival. The first threat had come, but it had not broken them. Instead, it had shown what the human was capable of, and in the darkness of that dangerous city, it was only a matter of time before more shadows rose against them. The workshop smelled of blood and oil after the fight. The broken tools and scattered chains on the floor told the story of what had happened. The mother still held her son close, her arms wrapped tight around him, though the boy slept peacefully. Unaware of the danger, the human stood quietly near the door, his back against the wall. His breathing was steady, his eyes still sharp. He had fought before many times, but tonight felt different. Tonight he was not fighting for himself. Tonight he was fighting for them. The mother's voice finally broke the silence. "You could have let them take me. You could have walked away. Why did you risk your life?" The man did not answer at once. He walked to the table, picking up the broken piece of metal he had used as a weapon. He studied it for a moment, then set it down. His voice was calm when he spoke. "Because I told you, I will not let your son starve. If I let them hurt you, he would starve again." The mother's eyes filled with tears. She looked at her son's small face, then back at the man. For the first time in many years, she felt the stir of something strange. Trust. But outside, the city was not silent. News of the fight spread. Like fire in dry grass, whispers carried across taverns and alleys. The human stood against the gangs. He fought 5 men and lived. He protects a beggar and her boy. These words reached many ears, some curious, some angry. By morning, the workshop door shook again, but not with enemies. This time it was neighbors, poor workers from nearby streets. They stood in the doorway, nervous but hopeful. An old alien woman stepped forward, her hands trembling. She placed a small basket on the floor. Inside was stale bread and a few fruits. "For the boy," she said quietly. "I saw what you did last night. You gave him food when no one else would. I cannot give much, but take this." The human looked at her, then at the food. He nodded once, his voice steady. "Thank you." Others followed. A man with cracked boots left a small jug of water. A child handed over a piece of dried meat. Slowly, the workshop filled with offerings. From those who had nothing, yet gave what little they could. The mother's eyes widened, her hands covering her mouth. They are helping us." The human's gaze swept across the room. He knew what this meant. These people were not helping because they suddenly found kindness. They were helping because someone had shown them courage. They were loyal not to him, but to what he had done, but loyalty had a price. The gangs would hear of this too, and they would not forgive. That night, the fire came. A blaze erupted in the street, flames licking the sky. The smell of burning wood and oil filled the air. The gang had returned, not with blades, but with fire. Shouts echoed. "Burn him out. Burn the human who defies us." The mother cried out in fear, pulling her son close. Smoke seeped through the cracks of the workshop. The boy coughed, tears in his eyes. "Mama, it's hot." The human moved quickly. He grabbed a wet cloth, pressed it into the mother's hands. "Cover his face, keep him low." Then he pulled a heavy metal sheet from the wall, using it as a shield. Flames licked against the windows, the heat growing, stronger. Outside, the poor neighbors gathered, their faces pale with fear. But something new stirred in their eyes. Anger. They had suffered under the gangs for too long. Now they saw someone standing against them, and they could not stay silent. Any more buckets of water were passed. Hands beat down flames with cloth and wood. The people fought the fire together, not for themselves, but for the human and the little family inside. The gang roared in frustration, throwing more fire, but the crowd pushed back. Stones flew, shouts rose. The gang was forced to retreat under the rain of defiance. For the first time in years, the people had fought back. When the flames finally died, the workshop stood blackened but still standing. The mother wept with relief, holding her son. Close, the neighbors cheered, though their faces were covered in soot and ash. One man stepped forward, his voice strong. "You stood for them, human, now we will stand for you." The human looked at them, his face unreadable. He did not smile, but there was a quiet respect in his eyes. He knew what had just happened was more dangerous than the fire. Loyalty had been born, and loyalty always drew enemies. Inside, the boy leaned against his mother, his eyes shining with wonder. "Mama, they fought for us." The mother stroked his hair, her heart beating with both fear and pride. She looked at the human, her voice soft. "They follow you now. They believe in you." The man shook his head. "They do not follow me. They follow hope. And hope is dangerous to those who rule through fear." The workshop was dark, its walls scorched, but something brighter burned within it. A bond of fire and loyalty, forged in danger, strong enough to change the city, or destroy it, the morning. After the fire, the workshop smelled of smoke and ash. The walls were blackened, the tools scattered, and the floor covered in soot. Yet inside, there was life. The boy laughed softly as he played with a broken gear the human had given him. His small hands turned it over and over as if it were a toy. The mother sat nearby, her face tired but calm for the first time in many weeks. She watched her son smile, and her heart felt lighter. She turned her eyes to the man who was repairing a bent pipe in the corner. His movements were steady, precise. His hands worked like they had done this 1,000 times before. Finally, she spoke, her voice low. "You should have left us after last night. The gangs will not stop. They will come again. They will bring more fire, more blades." The man did not look up. His voice was calm, almost quiet. "Yes, they will come, but so will I. I will be here when they do." The mother's hand shook. She did not understand. "Why? You owe us nothing. We are not your blood, not your people. Why do you risk your life?" The man finally stopped working and looked at her. His eyes were sharp, but not cold. "Because your son deserves a chance to live. Because you deserve to sleep without fear. That is enough reason." Her throat closed. Tears filled her eyes. For years she had been treated as worthless. For years no one cared if she lived or died. And yet here was a stranger, a human, speaking as if her life and her son's life had value. The boy looked up at the man with bright eyes. "Mister, are we your family now?" His innocent words made the room fall silent. The man froze, his hand tightened around the pipe he held. He had not expected the question. For a moment his eyes grew distant, haunted by the shadow of someone he had lost long ago. Finally he placed the pipe down and walked over to the boy. He knelt, placing a hand gently on the child's shoulder. "If you want me to be, then yes," he said softly. The boy's face lit up. He hugged the man tightly. The mother covered her mouth, her tears falling freely now. From that moment, something unspoken formed between them. Not just kindness, not just survival, but the beginnings of a family, fragile but real. The days that followed were not easy. The workshop needed repairs. The gangs still lurked in the shadows, watching, waiting. But something had changed. The neighbors came often, bringing scraps of food, bits of metal, or just their hands to help. The once broken building began to feel alive again, filled with voices, laughter, and work. The mother found herself helping too. She cleaned, she cooked with what little they had. She mended broken clothes. Her son followed the man everywhere, asking questions about the machines. The man taught him how to hold tools, how to fix small parts. The boy listened with shining eyes as if each word was a treasure. One evening, as the sun set behind the city's towers, the mother sat beside the man outside the workshop. The air was cool. Smoke still drifted faintly in the distance. She looked at him carefully, her voice gentle. "Do you regret it? Saving us? Taking us in?" The man shook his head, his gaze fixed on the dark streets beyond. "No, I regret nothing." He paused, his voice heavy but honest. "I lost someone once, someone I swore to protect, and I failed. I cannot change the past, but I can protect you now. I can protect him." He nodded toward the boy who was chasing a small ball of scrap with laughter. The mother's heart twisted. She wanted to ask about the person he lost, but she held back. She understood that his silence carried pain too deep to open yet. Instead, she whispered, "Then I will stand with you, whatever comes." The man turned to her, his eyes steady. "Do you mean that?" She nodded. "Yes. For too long I have only run, but I will not run anymore. Not if it means betraying the chance you've given us. For the first time, the man's lips curved into the smallest of smiles. It was brief, almost invisible, but real. He extended his hand. Then it's a promise. She placed her hand in his, her grip firm despite the tremble. A promise, she repeated. That night, when they went inside, the boy curled between them, smiling as he whispered, "We have a home now." His words were simple, but they struck deep. The man looked at the boy and then at the mother. He did not say it out loud, but inside he made a vow stronger than iron. He would not let anyone take this fragile home away. Outside, the gang still planned, the city still turned with cruelty. But inside that small workshop, something powerful was born. Not just safety, not just kindness, but loyalty, trust, and a bond stronger than fear. The man had found a purpose, the mother had found hope, and the boy had found a father. And with that, the promise was made, a promise that would soon be tested, in fire and blood. The city woke before the sun. Neon lights flickered out one by one, and the air was heavy with smoke and dust. The workshop stood scarred but alive, its walls blackened by fire yet filled with the sounds of hammers, voices, and laughter. What had once been a broken shelter was now something more, a home, a place where people gathered without fear. The boy was the first to wake. His small feet padded across the floor as he rushed to the man's side, tugging at his arm. "Mister, can we fix the roof today? Mama says it still leaks when it rains." The human looked down at him, his tired face softening. He ruffled the boy's hair and nodded. "Yes, we will fix it." The mother came from the corner, her eyes tired but filled with quiet strength. She carried a small pot of soup she had managed to make from scraps the neighbors brought. Her voice was calm as she said, "Eat first, then work. Even heroes need food." The man almost smiled. Almost. He accepted the bowl, his rough hands gentle as he held it. For a brief moment it felt like peace, but peace in this city never lasted. Long by midday, the noise of heavy boots filled the street outside. The neighbors froze, their hands still on tools and buckets. Fear spread quickly. Everyone knew that sound. It was the gangs, and this time, they did not come with 5 men nor with fire. This time they came with an army, dozens of them armored, carrying blades, chains, and torches. Their leader, the same man with the scarred wrist, stood tall in front, his voice echoed through the street. "Human, you think you can shame us? You think you can make the people forget their fear? Today we burn you out for good." The crowd trembled, but no one ran. The neighbors who had once bowed their heads now stood firm. Their hands gripped stones, sticks, and broken tools. They looked toward the workshop, toward the human who had shown them courage. Inside, the mother's face turned pale. She grabbed her son, whispering, "Stay behind me, no matter what." Her eyes burned with fear, but her voice was steady. The man stepped outside. His tall frame blocked the doorway. His eyes calm. His voice carried across the street. "You tried fire, you tried blades, you failed, leave now and no one else will get hurt." The gang roared with laughter. The leader spat on the ground. "You are one man, we are many. You cannot fight us all." The man's voice dropped lower, heavy with certainty. "I am not alone." The neighbors moved forward slowly at first, then with growing strength. Their voices rose, shouting, "Not alone! Not alone!" The sound echoed against the walls, filling the narrow streets with a power greater than any blade. The gang hesitated. For years they had ruled through fear, and now that fear was gone, the leader snarled, "Kill them all!" He raised his weapon and charged. His men followed, the street exploding into chaos. The fight was brutal, stones flew. Torches were torn from hands, chains clashed with metal. The man moved like lightning, every strike precise. He fought not for himself, but for the boy, the mother, and the people who had finally found their courage. Her body shook with fear, but her heart refused to let go of hope. She whispered over and over, "He will protect us," he promised. The boy, his eyes wide, clung to her hand, his voice small but steady. "Mama, he's winning, I know he is." Hours felt like minutes. The fight raged until the gangs began to break. One by one they fell back, beaten, their weapons broken, their pride shattered. The leader himself stumbled, his scarred wrist bleeding once more, his eyes filled with rage and fear. He shouted a final curse, "This is not the end, human," and fled into the dark alleys with what remained of his men. Silence fell. The street was covered in smoke and dust. The neighbors stood bruised and tired, but their eyes burned with victory. For the first time, the gangs had been defeated, not by fear but by unity. The man stood in the middle, his chest rising and falling, his hands bloodied, his clothes torn. He looked around at the people, at their faces filled with new strength. Then he turned back toward the workshop, toward the mother and boy watching from the doorway. The mother's eyes filled with tears. She ran to him, her son clinging to her side. She whispered, "You kept your promise." The boy hugged his leg tightly, looking up with bright eyes. "You didn't let them hurt us." The man placed his hand on the boy's head, his voice quiet but certain. "And I never will." The neighbors gathered, cheering. Some cried, some laughed, but all of them felt the same thing. A dawn of change had begun. No longer would they bow their heads in fear. No longer would they starve in silence. The mother looked around at the people, then back at the man. Her voice trembled but carried strength. "You gave us food, you gave us safety, but more than that, you gave us back hope." The man said nothing, but in his silence was a vow that the city would never be the same again. As the sun rose over the blackened walls, its light cut through the smoke. The boy laughed, chasing the golden beams as if they were treasures. The mother smiled through her tears, and the man, standing tall beside them, felt something he had long thought lost: peace. It was not the end. The gangs would return, shadows would always rise, but now there was fire in the hearts of the people, and in that fire was loyalty, strength, and something greater than fear. The desperate plea that once echoed in the marketplace had led to this: the birth of a family, the rise of hope, and the promise of a new dawn.